Back again, back again, back again. So I am trying to get this video recorded. I'm gonna record the video real quick. I'm sitting here waiting to drop a load off. So I thought I'd try to use my time somewhat productively. And I was just having this thought about attempting to take control of the reality around you, take control of your situation in life. And I was thinking about how we have algorithms on a lot of the social media sites that we use, right? YouTube included. So those algorithms work by learning your behaviors. So as you input information as far as what you enjoy watching, the kind of stuff that you search for, stuff that will just randomly pop up in your feed, and then whether or not you take it in, you watch it, you like it, you share it or whatever, subscribe to the channel, then you'll start to see more of that information, more videos like that, right? And so that is that same concept I feel like applies to life, right? And I was getting this analogy of, or metaphor of, a garden. And if you were growing a garden, you would plant seeds of fruits and vegetables and crops that you enjoy consuming or that have a use in your life. And in doing so, that would bring you a plentiful harvest, one that you are satisfied with or happy with, and that you can then utilize the energy that you get from consuming those crops or whatever usefulness they provide to you, and then exchange that energy into repeating that cycle or just living a more fulfilling life, right? And so if we were to look at our lives as gardens, I think we have to be very careful and conscious of what we are planting in our lives on a daily basis when it comes to thoughts, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to our pursuits, when it comes to just everything that we are allowing to manifest in our day-to-day lives, right? And that also includes our activity on the internet. Like, what are we consuming? And what are we allowing those algorithms to feed to us, right? Going along with the garden metaphor. So, like, for instance, if I watch videos that portray a lot of negativity or certain rhetoric, right? Like if you watch the news a lot, and if you're watching the news, you kind of consume this paradigm of violence, impending doom. You know, every day there's a new problem. There's just all kind of stuff that just keeps coming at you in a negative way, right? And it will with a negative perspective or message. And if you continue to consume that perspective or message, then you will start to see that as your reality. So if I watch the news every day and I'm being told that, you know, we're facing World War III, or that this country is out to get us, or that country's out to get them, and so on and so forth, I'm seeing all this conflict. What's going to happen then is I'm going to start to manifest conflict in my life and with people that I see, and I'll start to manifest symbols and signs of things that may not even portray to what I'm being exposed to. And so that algorithm, that garden, starts to get larger and larger and larger, and starts to include all these things that were not originally planted in it, but they're kind of like weeds sprouting off of this original thought, right? So as the news starts to give me more negativity, I start to get these negative weeds and plants more and more in my life. So I'm trying to see what's going on here back at the dock. Okay, anyway, so like you can start to grow weeds from those original thoughts, or like from negative thoughts, if you're not managing what's being what you're consuming and what you're allowing to grow into your mindset, right? So I lost my train of thought there. So like the news, for instance, one thing that I noticed that they were doing, and I'm not sure that this is intentional. I mean, it probably is, right? Like, how much do these media companies actually make by portraying these narratives and keeping us, kind of in this state of like hypnotism, by where we consume these concepts and messages and come to them for our primary source of information. And one thing I noticed was like when there was the active shooter, and I don't even remember where or what it was, but it turned out to be an Asian man. And then there was another active shooter, or at least the story of an active shooter on the news. It was also another Asian man, right? So they started hitting them back to back. And then at the same time, we were getting like the weather balloon from China. Like that story was coming out, right? And I say story because they are, like these events happen, but then they're spun into whatever paradigm or like rhetoric that the media wants to deliver it to us under, okay? And we don't have all the information, so they can manipulate the information that we're receiving. So it just was strange to me that it was almost like the media was building this paradigm to make anyone that was consuming that information like have skepticism or apprehension towards a certain race, right? So like you get your active shooters, they're all a certain race, right? And lo and behold, like if you were paying attention to the details, you probably noticed that, like one might be from a certain part of Asia and then another part of Asia, so they're not really even interconnected. That's like saying that, an active shooter was in California and an active shooter was in Canada type shit, and then trying to correlate them, right? And but then you throw out a big name like, oh, okay, now we've got China's weather balloon, right? And people that aren't really engaged with what they are experiencing and the kind of information they're consuming can very easily be led down a path of like, oh, it's a conspiracy of those Asians, they're out to get us. I knew it. Those Asians are out to get us, right? World War III, right? Next, what we're going to see, the Russians, you know what I'm saying? And it just begins to build this paradigm. And so that when you start getting those weeds growing, and now you're like, okay, I'm be on the lookout for anybody that's Asian and suspicious, you know what I'm saying? And then that turns into like you seeing certain symbology that might like relate to Asian culture as being offensive or implying some kind of negative message. And anybody that's like affiliated with that or wearing that or representing that then becomes an enemy, right? And that could just go into just about anything and everything. And it just takes time, I guess, and understanding to really try to break through some of the conditioning and the narrative that's being sold to us as far as like, this is the enemy or this is the negativity that you're facing. And I think we have to kind of break that down on an individual level and really identify, what are we facing in our own lives. And I do believe in my spirit, in my soul, I'm almost having a hard time with this myself, but like I do believe that we don't have enemies necessarily, right? Like the way that humans are kind of built to function is we're either going to like we're pretty much always on an individual level going to pursue what is in our best interest. Typically, harming another human, because the way that our society is set up, pursuing to harm another human, if I'm in my right state of mind, is typically going to be a disadvantage for me, right? For the individual, because I then run into all these other complications and implications on my behavior because I'm trying to harm someone else, right? It just complicates my experience in my life, right? The individual's life, as opposed to pursuing what is just more like advantageous or more beneficial for the individual without getting into that, without getting into harming another human or whatever, right? So I don't believe that we inherently have enemies. I think there are situations you can find yourself in where, you can develop enemies, or you can at least develop disagreements and conflicts. But I think 9 times out of 10, you don't really have anyone that's actively against you. But if you were to download that paradigm or that rhetoric and that idea of like, okay, these people are out to get me, then, or whatever, like there's opposition, then that is going to continue to manifest in your life and get in your way. And that's just kind of like something that I'm trying to explore, understand, and I'm trying to develop more positivity in my life. And so I'm paying more attention to, like, where do my thoughts originate? Where does negativity originate? Right? So when I get an idea and it seems to almost be harmful to me or negative in origin, I'm really trying to dissect where that comes from and break it down. And these videos help me do that. It just kind of like help me take a second to just kind of breathe and analyze what I'm feeling in a grander sense, right? In a larger perspective. And I'm hoping that can help somebody else that's kind of struggling with the same thing. But essentially, I mean, that's really it. Just kind of like, again, look at life as a garden. What seeds are you planting? What are you growing? What kind of weeds are you allowing to grow in your garden or in your mindset, right? And what are the algorithms feeding you? Okay, so like when you're watching certain content or you're scrolling on the internet, what are you subconsciously or even consciously selecting and allowing into your reality? So I've changed up a lot of the content that I consume, and I've been consuming more spiritual concepts, more concepts even about like ancient civilizations, spirituality, and quantum physics, just stuff like that to get me thinking in a larger perspective, right? So instead of consuming information that keeps me in tune with the third dimensional physical reality, where I'm constantly like at odds with the environment around me and I have to struggle and fight for survival, now I can consume content that makes me look at life in a little bit more broader of a picture. And I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute. A lot of these things stem from me, and as I put them out to the universe, then through laws of energy and transformation, they come back to me, right? In turn, they come back to me. So it just allows me to focus on a larger perspective in which I'm more in control of my reality. You are more in control of your reality. And that we can change our situation if we are patient enough with ourselves, if we are loving enough with ourselves, and start to pour out that love into the environment around us so that it can seed, grow, and come back to us. Thank you. See you in the next video.